Right now we are doing backcountry campsite shank, backcountry campsite braised shank in the middle of the woods. Stick around. All right, I am here in the middle of the woods. I'm at a campsite. This is a backcountry campsite located on Tullaby Lake in the Nopaming Forest in Manitoba here. And what's going on today is we have some braised shank, some venison shank that is going over the fire right now. So we have a pretty hot fire going right now, and in that, over that fire is a pot, and inside that pot we're going to sear some venison. We're going to throw in, excuse me, we're going to throw in a bunch of really awesome ingredients. We've got onion, we've got carrot, we've got some beef broth, we've got some beer, and that all goes in that pot over the hot fire for a good sear for the first little bit, and then after a while we put on the lid, we throw it in the coals, and we let it just sit for a while. So while it's sitting and cooking down slowly, we are going to go for a little bit of a canoe trip and adventure out into the wilderness. And when we come back, that food is going to be ready and delicious and good for us to eat. So right now we are doing backcountry campsite shank, backcountry campsite braised shank in the middle of the woods. Stick around. That right there is our pot. It's a cast iron pot, and it is sitting over some hot burning fire right now. But as you can see, there are some bigger logs in there. So as things cook down and burn down, those bigger logs are going to break apart for us and be awesome coals that we can then throw our pot in the midst of, throw a couple on top of the pot, and turn this whole little thing into an oven here. There's a lid that goes on top of that as well. So right now we have some ingredients to prepare. So inside that pot we have onion, we have some venison shank that we're going to sear, we have some carrot that we're going to cook down with some spices. I even have some sumac that is going in there that will add this citrusy kind of wildernessy flavor to it. It's going to be delicious. And once that's all cooked down, we add our beer in there and some stock with a little bit of water, because we need liquids in order to braise that meat and to not allow it to burn. We want it to kind of boil in those liquids. So right now I am going to cut up some onions. I'm going to cut up some carrots and maybe pick apart some fresh herbs that I brought from the garden at home. And that is all going to go in that pot with our venison shank. Maybe this part should be slow-mo. So if you don't know what the shank is or where the shank comes from, it's actually this forearm piece here, or it's from the back leg, that lower part of the back leg of the deer. And it's a super tough piece of meat, and you have to slow cook it in order to break all this muscle tissue down. So if that's a piece of meat that, sorry, I'm picking it clean here as I'm going. If this is a piece of meat that you would typically turn into, I guess for the hunters out there, turn it into a sausage or into ground venison, try keeping these things. Get your butcher or do it yourself. Just cut the chunks of bone. You can see there's bone segment in here as well. That marrow is all going to leach out and taste delicious, but give this a try. It's an amazing way to eat it. So what we need to do to get the slow cooking process going, I have the onions and carrot going in here. I just need to sear this meat really hot on the outside, and I'll get my other pieces. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just searing the outsides nice and hot to get a bit of a brown skin on it. And I'll sear every single side. And once I'm done searing all four sides, then I need to add the liquid back into the pan. So what I have is a little bit of lake water. I have some beef stock, and we also have a little bit of beer that's going in there as well, and that beer just adds such a great aroma and taste to it. It's a dark beer, and that will go really, really good with this venison dish. So that is all going into this pot. We're gonna cover the venison almost all the way with those fluids, put the lid on, put it into the fire, put coals on top of it, and then we're taking off for a couple of hours as this slow cooks and turns into something just beautiful. So I think the only couple things I'm gonna add to this yet that I didn't mention are a little bit of sumac, which will add a little bit of that citrus hit to it, and some pepper. Garlic and herbs and everything are already in there, so fluids, into the coals, adventure time, and then dinner time. Okay, so instead of doing the honors myself, I'm going to get Paul here, located somewhere right behind me, to do what I would typically be doing. So he's going to lift this pot off of the grill, and we are going to put it in a bed of coals. I just did a super epic move with the sun behind you.
Yes.
It was good. All right, so you're gonna fiddle with that a little bit until we have a little nook. Let's get a little closer here.
Coals in the middle.
The light is terrible right now. But now we have a great spot for our pot to sit and to be situated. Don't spill it now.
No, no. Oh, I'm gonna move it over more. Perfect, perfect it.
Step one, perfect it. Perfect the fire.
There we go.
Oh yes.
Then I get some side roasting.
Perfect. So now essentially with that guy just kind of sitting there in between those two logs, it's okay if it gets a decent amount of heat. We don't want it too hot, but there's a lot of fluid in there, so if it boils, that's not a bad thing. We're not going to have anything at this point sticking to the bottom or burning. So yeah, we're gonna let that take a little bit of a bath, and we'll add some logs around it and add some wood around it as time goes on here. But we're kind of just letting this sit. We're taking off for a little while, and when we get back, hopefully this meat will be nice and broken down, and we'll have a pretty sweet little dessert for later. Did you get a look at this here yet, Paul? Oh yeah, right.
Break it apart like
It is just so tender. So we just opened up this basin of meat here, and look how tender this is. So this meat, we went on a long hike, we got back, we saw some moose poop, and this venison is looking insane. So what we're going to do is pull it apart a little bit, mix it with some, look at that dip. Oh, it's so thick. We're gonna mix up some mashed potatoes, and this stuff is going on top. Looks a little bit messy, but we'll figure it out. So, what just happened is we got back from our hike, and our venison has been going on the fire, I was gonna say the cooker, for a while in our pot, and we took a sneak peek already. We took a little taste, and it's insane. So what we're doing is we have some sour cream mashed potatoes whipped up with some herbs in there. So these, there we go, sorry, I was pointing that away from the camera. These fellas are going right on top. So there we have our mashed potatoes on the plate, and now we're going for the good stuff. So here are the goods. So let's grab a couple of bones here. Some nice chunks of meat. I'm just gonna set that down right there. Get that meat situated right on top. I mean, we've got more, so may as well do another. And I'll be right back with that spoon. All right, you ready for this? Get that sauce right on top. Don't get the thyme leaves in there. That is it. Finish that off with a little bit of chive because we've got it. A little bit of chive and parsley mix. And there it is. This is slow braised venison done in a cooker right over the fire. We gotta dig into this. Hey, tell us what we have going on here.
So the best thing to do when you're in the bush is to read stories about bear attacks and such. Luckily today, our bear story will not involve a human. It will involve two animals. Sheathed in rippling hard rock muscle, the king of the deer family was no patsy.
Pretty descriptive.
Yeah. All that remained were bones and some patches of hide. The skull and the antlers. Claw and tooth marks on the antlers evidenced that it was the same bull they had watched kill the bear. They rode on, wondering whether the bull had died of injuries inflicted by the bear or had fallen to a pack of wolves that found the bull too weak to defend itself.
Is that the end?
Yeah, that's the end.
Wow.